The trial opened in No. 1 Court at the Old Bailey on January 7, 1969. Ronnie and Reggie Kray were both charged with murder and with being an accessory to murder. Interest in the trial was intense. Seats were even selling on the black market at £5 a go, something that delighted the twins. Even when it looked bad, the twins still managed to keep their sense of humor, especially Ron, who kept on joking and shouting his head off at any opportune moment, always the showman. By now the twins were certain of their fate. The preliminary hearing had shown that former pals and allies had turned against them. Now, several months later, they were sure that there would be an endless queue waiting to bear all in the witness box. They were resigned to the fact that they would be spending a long time in jail. Things started slowly. A cage had been erected to house the Krays and their cohorts, but 2 men were missing. Scotch Jack Dixon and the Krays' cousin Ronnie Hart had turned state's evidence and would be appearing for the prosecution. Nipper had really done his homework. The fate of the Krays was sealed. Charges were read aloud in court. Ron and Reg were both charged with double murder of Cornell and McVitie. Charlie was accused of helping to get rid of McVitie's body, together with Freddie Foreman, and the others were implicated in a mishmash of charges. Mr. Melford Stevenson, the judge for the trial, was solemn throughout, living up to his reputation as a hard but fair man. Like the prosecutor, Mr. Kenneth Jones QC, he kept to the facts, the truth, the hard evidence. But at times these men would delve into the realms of the theatrical, to lighten the proceedings and to bring home a point. From day one, the trial was as entertaining as the best of television or theater. It was the best show in town. Gentlemen of the jury, the prosecutor announced, think for a moment of the horrifying effrontery, the terrifying effrontery of this deed. 2 men walk into a public house and there, in cold blood, kill another human being. The room was held in stunned silence. I will bring before you the barmaid and she will tell you that she recognizes the killer of George Cornell. Elements of the cross-examination were a little farcical. John Platts Mills QC represented Ronnie and Paul Wrightson QC represented Reggie. Try as they could to attack the witnesses, it seemed rather self-evident that they were telling the truth. It was all backed up with statements and witness testimonies. They could not refute the testimonies, they could really only condemn those members of the firm making the statements. So you are saying this to save your own skin, they would say. But there was no master plan, no scheme of events for them to hold on to. Day by day the prosecution piled on the statements and the pressure. Day by day a long sentence seemed assured. Charlie's barrister was Desmond Bowden. He reassured Charlie Kray that there was nothing to worry about. He felt they had a good case against the charges of involvement in the Mitchell killing, and he thought he could prove that Charlie was nowhere to be seen when McVitie was knifed to death. But as the witnesses took to the witness box, Charlie knew that his days were numbered. Ronnie Hart was not telling the truth, neither was Scotch Jack. The film star Charlton Heston made an appearance in the courtroom one day and other celebrities turned up to see their so-called pals. But Judy Garland couldn't make it, so she sent them a telegram wishing them good luck. It became clear right from the outset that the majority of the firm had deserted them. Ronnie Hart was the principal prosecution witness and along with John Dixon, he had thrown in his lot with the police, to get away with it, to stay out of jail free. Altogether some 28 criminals gave their evidence against the twins. Ron and Reg Kray decided that the only option was to go down fighting, so they tried as best they could to add their own personalities to the proceedings. They both appeared in the dock immaculate as usual. They both refuted the witness testimonies. They both denied murder. They both admitted nothing. Ron even went on to say that he had never been in the Blind Beggar, and that he and Cornell were old friends. But throughout their testimony the court could see their demeanor, their hatred of the law, their lack of respect for the proceedings. Only once did Reg lose his cool, when the prosecution brought up the death of his wife Frances. "The police are scum," he shouted. Ronnie too only lapsed once, when he shouted at the prosecuting counsel, "You fat slob." But the press were disappointed. There were no juicy names thrown around the courtroom, no secrets revealed about the rich and famous or the celebrities of the time. Ron and Reg Kray were not talking about their influential friends, they never would. "We never inform," said Ronnie. "We believe we're better than the rats who deserted our ship." Of all those who testified, only 3 men refused to talk. Ian Barry would neither confirm nor deny any involvement, nor would Freddie Foreman. Charlie Kray simply said that he knew nothing of the killings, and that his role was simply as an advisor and nothing else. He didn't know of any murders, and he certainly didn't help with getting rid of any bodies. The Krays were not charged with protection, and there were no charges with regard to the U.S. Mafia and the money laundering. The police said nothing about the long-firm frauds. The prosecution concentrated on the killings of 2 crooks, George Cornell and Jack the Hat McVitie. No one mentioned the psychology of twins and the effect that it had on their relationships. And Reg Kray would not say that it was his brother who had urged him on to that final moment of death. It was pride that stopped Reg Kray defending himself. It was that twin thing that denied him a fair trial. And it was that same misguided belief in honor that betrayed Charlie. With Ron and Reg both denying murder, there was no defense for Charlie. The twins did, however, approach Nipper Reed on one occasion, nearing the end of the trial, to ask for leniency for their brother. But Reed was onto a good thing. He knew that Charlie Kray was no killer, and all 3 Krays had to go down, and go down for a long time. It was the only way, and the police pulled no punches. Violet was in court most days, supporting her boys. But she didn't recognize the events recounted by the witnesses. Surely her boys couldn't really do that. Surely they were just her adorable twins, they were special. She and old man Charlie had even sold the new family home, the Brooks, in the Suffolk countryside so they could help pay for the costs of the trial. Other family members appeared in the witness box too. Aunt May received a vicious onslaught from the prosecution, followed by strict words from the judge. Ron and Reg complained about her treatment, and so too did Charlie. But it did no good. As far as the trial of the Krays was concerned, it had already been decided. The police, the judiciary, the slags of the firm, they were all in cahoots. After 61 days, the jury retired to consider their verdict. It had been the longest trial in criminal history, and the most expensive, costing over £150,000. The jury took 6 hours and 54 minutes in all to reach a verdict, and they then piled back into the courtroom. Their decision was handed to the judge, and Justice Melford Stevenson read it aloud in court at 7 p.m., March 8, 1969. The twins were found guilty of murder, and Charlie was found guilty of getting rid of the body of Jack the Hat McVitie, even though he was in bed at the time of the actual killing. "I am not going to waste words on you," the judge told Ron and Reg. "In my view, society has earned a rest from your activities. I sentence you to life imprisonment, which I recommend should not be less than 10 years. Ron and Reg were just 35 years old. By the time they got out of jail, they would be almost pensioners. The thought of 30 years behind bars was something else. They had both been in prison before, but neither could contemplate or appreciate what 30 years actually meant. There was not enough evidence to convict on any of the other charges, so 30 years it was. Charlie was given 10 years for getting rid of Jack the Hat, and Freddie Foreman also received 10 years. Ian Barry got 20 years for his part in the killing of Cornell. After the previous hullabaloo, the sentencing was a rather tame affair. The news reporters ran from the courtroom as the Krays were taken away to start serving their sentences. They had already been on remand for some 10 months, but that didn't even scratch the chart as far as the twins were concerned. Not less than 30 years, Justice Melford Stevenson had said. That was a long time, and those words were to haunt the Krays during the forthcoming years of their imprisonment. The twins were put in the cells below. When Ron heard of the sentence they had given Charlie, he was furious. "The rats gave you 10 years?" he asked, too shocked to take it all in. 10 years, repeated Charlie. 10 fucking years.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please join our Facebook group. It's called Krays Crime Lords of London. We're a friendly moderated group with over 1,000 Kray and other celebrated gangster videos available for view. There's also thousands of images in the photos sections. The link for the group is in the YouTube description section. I hope we see you there soon.